Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to RPM, the Red Peace Machine. We are here with not our full cast of characters today. We are missing our beloved, our warm, our wonderful Roy Peace. What are we going to do? How are we going to balance out Roywar? I don't know. Let's see where it heads. How is everyone doing today? Just muzzle him.
Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Susie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm making it. I think just like everybody else, just it feels like Groundhog Day still, just doing the same thing every day, every single day. So other than that, I think I've heard places are opening up downtown if people are careful and inoculated and so that I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm not going down there, but I'm excited for the people.
Yeah, how about you, Benafsha?
Yeah, things are good. This coming week is the last week of high school in Austin,
Wow.
and it's testing. I'm not a big fan of testing, never have been. So we've been doing a lot of meditation in class and breathing exercises.
Hey, amazing.
I know. Lots of
Good.
bell things to regulate myself and the students.
For the record, AISD is added 3 days in June, so it's not actually the last week for AISD. Next.
Yeah. And how they just torture these kids, man. Anyway.
Well, they were gonna there was an idea to repeat the whole year.
Oh my God, are you serious? I didn't hear.
Yeah, I read about it on some I can't remember which newspaper it was, but the teachers, the parents and students want it, the teachers do not. From what I understand. Does that track?
I need to think about that.
The kids want to go back to do parties.
That idea. I'm gonna sit with it.
Oh, Roywar, what bellicose thoughts do you have for us today?
I'm just stir crazy. Yeah. I think one of the things that's going to come out of all of this is what a bullshit scam online learning is. And I think people are going to have to, there's no way to hide it anymore. So all those online bullshit university classes that nobody ever learned anything from. The word that had been going around for a while was that corporations were starting to look at your transcripts to see how many online classes you took, because then they would then sort of deduct that from your education, because they know they're worthless. And that now I think that's going to become more widespread.
Well, here's the interesting thing, though. The results of the STAR test. This is the assessment, the general assessment, year-end assessment in Texas, are in. We were looking at the data last week, and for first-year high school students, the biology and English tests, there was almost no difference from 2019, because they didn't take it 2020 because of the pandemic. But are y'all ready? Math across the state, there was a 40% drop in passing rates. 40%. And that was our number.
Wow.
And I am so not surprised. Now they are talking about, oh, math has to be done on paper. It's tactile. You got to do it. There's a connection. I'm like, really? Motherfuckers, really? I mean, motherfuckers, like, I mean, this is like, for anybody who's ever done math, this is like ABC. Like, this is so obvious.
Yeah.
and practice. So
Yeah, but
biology, you
Mhm.
learn a factoid and then you answer a multiple choice question. English, you read a passage, you answer a multiple choice question.
Mhm.
In math, what the hell? You need freaking
Yeah.
scratch paper. I mean, you need to do this stuff in the classroom.
Mhm. Yeah, it's because intuition is not a valid source of knowledge, right? You have to have, it's until the data comes in. When the study shows it's true, then it is allowed to be true. Your intuition does not matter.
Especially since almost everything is counterintuitive.
And yeah. And wouldn't you say that the STAR test, I mean, that's something that syllabus be damned, you guys are teaching to, right? You're teaching to the test. Am I wrong about that?
We are told not to think like that, which really messes a person who's teaching for the first year really up, because I didn't and it bit me in the ass.
Mm.
And I'm not going to do that again, because it messes with the student's sense of self. Like, this
Yep.
is how they are assessed, but we're not teaching to it. I have a lot of emotions, as y'all can tell, about all of this.
My mom taught for 25 years in the public school system here in Texas, and she taught at ACC. But that was one of the, it goes through iterations. I think one of them was the TOS test, and then there was we all did the CAT, which I loved when our teachers called it the CAT test. I was like, "Ugh, redundancy is not part of a lesson that we're going to learn here." But they've all been something that teachers had to teach too. Even the syllabus, if it wasn't in stone, if you could, like, my mom was one of the last teachers who taught Huckleberry Finn, and that was fine, but her kids better be able to pass that damn test is the most important thing. And I think it really does a disservice. Maybe in math and spelling, maybe reading comprehension, but I think that if a kid can't do it by high school, then we need to put this kid in a different set of learning circumstances, maybe, because this test seems to me that it would be passable in these. I mean, it's not the hardest test in the land.
You have
Am
to
I?
get
I mean,
42% to pass, or 41% to pass it.
and
That is
so
not
is that on every single part of it, or is that cumulatively?
I mean, for each of the tests, math, English, biology, each one, you have to get 41 or 42%.
I'm
They couldn't do
I'm
that.
surprised I
Most of them
passed
got
it.
20% for math. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And then we tell immigrants not to come over here. We're just going to be a big group of idiots over here running into things with our non-metric system.
We should just do it the Finnish way, right? Take all the trauma of learning out of it and let children learn and be and grow and all that good stuff.
But then we would have intelligent voters. And if you're a Demoblican or a Republican, you don't want that.
No. You hear about Dodge City? They finally opened up a new they had closed there was one polling place and they closed it last time in 2018, I guess. They just opened it back up. It was the only polling place like for hundreds of miles in Kansas. I don't know if you've been to Kansas, but there's not a lot to see. It's very flat. And there's nothing there. So you have to, if you don't have, a way to get somewhere, you're screwed. You can't vote. They're not doing vote by mail. What are these people supposed to do? Speaking
I don't know. I'm not really shook up about cancers not being able to vote.
I'm a Cancer. I mean, I'm
Are
not
you
from
really?
Kansas, but I was born under the sign of Cancer.
Oh, okay, but that's different.
Oh, okay. So we can vote.
What do you call a person from Kansas?
Kansasian. Ooh. Kanzactian. Kanzanian.
Is it Hawker?
All right, y'all. I'm gonna corral.
I think it's
corral us to our topic. We've had enough of an intro. We are not meandering our way.
I was trying to relate. I was trying to relate the Israel Israel-Palestinian situation to cancer, and I stepped back. I didn't do it.
Yeah, no. Canary Mission is listening. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. So what proportion, speaking of voting, what proportion of the population under the control of the Israeli state is able to vote?
I'm assuming it's the 6 million Jewish Israelis and the 2 million Palestinian Israelis who sometimes call themselves Arab Israelis.
Mhm.
But the people in the occupied territories obviously aren't citizens. They're not, by the way, for the record, they're not citizens of anywhere.
Anywhere.
It's stateless.
They're stateless. Even though technically the Palestinian Authority has been recognized by the UN as a state,
Mhm.
in reality, they're still no state.
Yeah, aren't there a bunch of qualifications? It's like a non-member observer, something state.
I thought when they recognized them as a state, they gave them the ability to vote. I could be wrong about that. But there's no state infrastructure to pull that off. Basically, what the Palestinian Authority is Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and then it's Fatah in the West Bank. And effectively, all they are in the West Bank is the capos for the Israelis for the giant open air concentration camps. And then in Gaza, they're the resistance force. And so, I mean, there's no state.
Yeah.
So they had a ceasefire. What does that mean?
So it means it'll be what it always is. So one of the things that keeps coming up for me is the language that keeps being used. And the language is, old wounds reopened. It's old wounds reopened. No, it's an open wound that's always open. The Palestinians have no status. They have no human rights. They have no civil liberties. They have no civil rights. They are a population of people who have been disinherited of their land, their homes. They've had their relatives murdered, and they live in permanent refugee status, even in their own territory, right? Like the majority of the people in Gaza aren't from Gaza. They're from some other part of Palestine, and they were evicted, and now they're refugees. The majority of people in the West Bank aren't from the West Bank. So even when they live in the occupied territories, they're still refugees. They're just internal refugees as opposed to the displaced Palestinians everywhere else. And so there's the ceasefire is just, let's maintain this open festering wound in the current status that it is, which is effectively a default two-state solution where the other party doesn't have a state.
Yeah, let's get some political capital with this theater, like this performance here, and then go about our business doing the same thing we've been doing, which is cleansing the area from Palestinian life and any sort of power. Going back to what Roy was saying about language. So driving to and from work, I have like close to a 2-hour commute. I'm listening to NPR every day. And as they introduce the topic, they say the Israeli-Hamas conflict. This is between Israel and Hamas. This is between Israel and Hamas. And this is the beginning of the framing of the issue. And I'm thinking, this is brilliant. This is beyond brilliant, because this is not a problem of the Palestinian people. This is not anything about, this is separating the issue from land grab and occupation and colonialism. This is about, and they keep focusing on Hamas, and they keep focusing on this entity as a terrorist organization. And of course, the other thing that you keep hearing is that Israel, especially from the White House now, Israel has the right to defend itself, as we have been hearing for how many decades now. And I'm thinking, yeah, those Palestinians in Gaza, you got to defend yourself against them. Yeah, I mean, the framing of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's this
So
illusion that happens just in the buildings itself, right? We say that, or what the way we hear it is that these residential buildings, these commercial buildings, all of this, each one is a potential target. Each one is a potential terrorist outpost, right? It's housing missiles, it's housing supplies, it's housing all of this or whatever. So the building itself, even if it is an AP building, even if it is a, a press building, even if it is a residential apartment building or whatever, it's elided into this sort of realm of the terrorist figure scary thing over here. And I think, Banafsha, from what you're saying, the same thing is happening between like Hamas and Palestine as a whole, right? So Hamas comes to stand in for Palestine as a whole. Palestinians are
that's what
seen
I'm saying.
as
Yeah.
Hamas sees, yeah.
It's an erasure of the people and
Yeah.
an elevating of the enemy status. The
But not even just the enemy, the like unreasonable terrorist enemy status, the one who you can't negotiate with, the one who is, yeah, savage. Uh-huh.
the savages, not even unreasonable, the irrational.
Mm,
Yeah, totally.
They do cast them as complete savages, who they just as soon kill their children as they're
mm,
cast in this awful light. For example, that we were talking about earlier before we went on the air of the guy who called and said we're going to bomb that building, get out, and the guy said the Palestinian men said we're not leaving the building, and he said we're going to bomb it, and he said we have children here, and he said we'll get them out, and the guy said no, we're just going to, this is how we expose your cruelty, is to show people what you guys do, and besides, where do you want us to go? Where is it that you want us to go? I mean, if I don't know, I'm sure you did, but there was a map of Gaza and all the places that had been hit by bombs, and it was just clusters. I mean, I don't know where those people were supposed to go other than into the ocean.
there's
Yeah.
a blockade for that too.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I'm doing a kind of a study of media coverage of this whole issue over the last 2 weeks, I guess. But a couple, 2, 3 days ago, I was listening, they were interviewing, and they kept going back to the same person. There's a man who teaches English. And he has 2 children and a wife, and he lives in he has a living quarters and everything. And they're talking to him, and the questions they were asking him blew my mind. So what are they? Somehow they found the only Palestinian who is pro-American. Somehow. I don't even know how they found this man. So the question they're asking him, do you want to leave Gaza? Really? This is the question you asked? Of course, he's being bombed. He's living in a refugee camp. Like, how is this even, what is this telling you? Is this the question you want to ask this man? Because it's the safest question. If he says, yes, I want to leave. Oh, it's so terrible. The next question would have been, you want to come to the US, don't you? Like, oh my, and the guy, he still has to live there. So yeah, he during the whole, I think I listened to at least 2 conversations. This is the only person who never brought up the occupation, never said anything about Israelis, and never talked about US complicity. But they got the Palestinian point of view. They covered.
And then we're done. And now we're done. Now you know.
Yeah. Again, I'm talking about NPR because I listen to NPR because I want to know what the liberals in this country are listening to.
Mm-hmm.
That brings up the Emily Wilder situation from AP, and she got fired for a tweet she had attended before she was hired on AP. She was working for Arizona newspaper, and she had, put out some press releases, and she had tweeted out some things that she was attending some pro-Palestine events, and tweeted out something about, I can't remember which leader it was, but said probably Netanyahu said something really, snide about him or whatever. And AP fired her. They just said, that's enough now. You can't have that biased kind of outlook. Well, I kind of understand that one way, that you don't want your reporters so obviously biased, Fox News, right? But at the same time, this happened. She was not working, and she was not working for them. And so, in my opinion, they had a chance to do due diligence. They didn't do it. And she has not done anything like this since she's worked for them. Just because someone's uh, politics are known, does that mean that they can't have they can't put themselves in a journalist position where I don't have an agenda and I just want to ask questions and write this article about something I feel
But
passionately?
censorship around the Palestine-Israel thing is nonstop and ongoing. Helen Thomas, who had been a journalist covering the White House for how many decades, how many presidents, got fired because of her comment. I myself have actually been censored now as a professor 3 times, and 2 times over a Palestine issue. The 3rd time was actually over Syria, and a lecture I wanted to do on U.S. complicity in the Syrian civil war, and I was censored over that. And so the reality is in the United States, in fact, the last episode and this episode scare the piss out of me. Like my adrenaline goes up because my assumption is this fascist little hive mind racist state is going to go after me because I have an opinion that doesn't match their little genocidal policies. And the reality is we live in a Nazi place. The United States of America is to freedom and human rights as Nazi Germany was. We have the largest percentage of the adult male population incarcerated in human history. We don't have universal health care. We don't have universal free university. Our schools are shit for poor people. They're amazing for rich people. Women's rights are diminishing all over the place. We're just as segregated as we were in the 1960s. We are an apartheid. We are a full-on apartheid racist state. We support an apartheid racist state. And if you say anything about this, they're going to come down on you and they're going to go after you. They're going to get rid of your tenure. They're going to fire you. They're going to do everything they can to shut you up. And so I live in this constant state of fear because I know that there's some asshole out there, some white douchebag who's going to fucking come after me.
Yeah.
We don't have universal paid maternity leave. I mean, we are the shithole country of the planet. We don't even use metric. There's something fucking
I just don't understand I mean, we're the best. We have to be different. Y'all be like us. We're not going to be like you. I mean, that's
but
who we
I
are.
want to talk about what Susie said though, because I think it's really, really important. And that is it's about staying objective as a reporter and objectivity in general in news. The person who is reporting from Israel, again, I'm going to go to NPR because this is the bastion of for liberal majority in the United States, the bastion of level reportage. So let's just talk about them. The person reporting from Israel, about the conflict, was stationed in Israel. She would go to the fence, basically, right? And be with and surrounded by folks who had just moved there. Sorry, I keep banging on the table. And her language was so cringeworthy. I noticed every time she came on, I was grinding my teeth. And she is openly supporting Israelis, openly speaking on their behalf. And what is the afternoon show? All Things Considered, Mary Beth, whatever her name is, she's the new person who just took over. Never once even hinted at questioning any of the language she was using, which was fully supportive of Israel's right to defend itself, Israel's position as the oppressed Israel's, as the attacked, as the person we are supposed to, in this report and every report before and after, take the side of. Never once was there a question. And you know what? That's normal.
Yeah.
That's unbiased. That's the even where we enter the picture.
Yeah.
And so if there is a reporter somewhere who is shut up and self-censoring or censored in NPR, again, I want to hear from them.
Yeah.
I want to hear them go toe to toe with this woman who is over there. And I say woman charged because it's disappointing to me when women are doing this.
Oh no, I know.
I expect more from us.
Right? Isn't it always like so much worse when a woman does it? I mean, for
I
women,
just expect more from women. I expect more from women.
Exactly. I mean, it's just like a punch in the throat. It's like, really, girl?
Yeah. So, but just to wrap up this whole, we need to remain unbiased thing. We are in biased land. We're swimming in it. We are. It's not we're even swimming in it. It's like a batlaq. We say in Farsi. It's what is batlaq? Like it even sounds. It's one of those onomatopoeias where you are
drowning.
You are
immersed.
Yeah,
drowning.
not quicksand, but it's soupy.
In the muck.
Muck. Something. Yeah.
Muck.
No, it's actually a natural phenomenon, batlaq. It's dead water that if you step in it, you
like the Dead Sea, or no, that lifts you up, doesn't it?
It's a body of water. It's a small pond thing that's so. Come on, what is it called? I don't know.
Swamp.
Okay.
Oh, you mean Washington?
No, but yeah, like.
Can you spell that for me? Is it BOTHLOK? Batlaq?
I mean, you write it differently in Arabic.
But you can't spell it in. There's no spell.
Yeah. BAAT bot LAA lock. It's a Q batlaq.
Okay. Batlaq. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we are. We are in a swamp of pro-Israeli bias already.
But I mean, period, because like when we say objective, what we mean is what would a Protestant heterosexual rich white man say? That's all we mean by objective. So when a professor stands up in front of you in a classroom and says, be objective in your paper, they mean, tell me what.
Tell me what I want to
square with the anti-Semitism in this country.
I'm sorry, what was that?
How does this square with the anti-Semitism in this country?
It actually squares really well.
Yeah.
Because let's say you really hate Jews, which I think the majority of white people in the United States are actually profoundly anti-Semitic. Well,
I agree.
Supporting Israel, being a Zionist, is perfect because then you can encourage your Jewish neighbors to leave and go live in Palestine on land that was stolen. And then they're whiter than Palestinians, and they're, by the way, less Jewish than Palestinians. And so it's actually absolutely perfect because you can get a Semite to murder a Semite, and you can and you don't have to do it. And you can talk about how you have Jewish friends and how much you love Jews, and you can look good.
There's also a way in which, right, the Christian Zionism that we have is deeply anti-Semitic as well, right?
Probably anti-Semitic. It's also deeply nationalistic. So, right, it's 30% of Americans are fundamentalist Christians, by the way. So 3 out of every 10 is a, bomb throwing terrorist. The difference is they do it from B-52s instead of strapping it to their chest and going into a crowd. And Robert Putnam, the political scientist, wrote a book called American Grace, and he said, no, these are not fundamentalists. And here's why. Because a fundamentalist believes the only path to salvation is through their religion. And Putnam asked all these fundamentalists, can Jews go to heaven? And they said, yes. Well, what he did was screwed up. I wanna talk to Putnam about this because I can't believe he made this mistake. They don't believe that Jews can go to heaven. They believe that when Jesus comes back after Armageddon, the Jews will see he is the Messiah and immediately convert to Christianity. The only person getting to heaven is a Christian still. It's just people who are currently Jewish will become Christian in that moment, right before Jesus.
And so there's,
but it's also, imagine that the majority of Jewish folks in Israel need to, you know, be there for that Armageddon and serve a very particular kind of role, and then go to hell for that.
Exactly. Unless they realize Jesus is the Messiah, and then they can be saved.
Purgatory. Yeah. We're not sending them all the way. It's just the waiting room.
Well, no, that's if you're Catholic. If you're Protestant, they go straight to hell.
No, but Jews. I meant Jews. They just hang out.
But Protestants don't have purgatory. That's a Catholic thing.
But okay, but we know better, right? So they're just in the waiting room. But the Jews. So what you're saying is that there's a little wiggle room here, right? So like, if I don't believe in God, or I'm a Jew and I die and Jesus comes back and he's looking at me, then I have, or even if I don't die, I have this just little bit of time to say, oh, you were right.
I think that's if you're Jewish. I don't think that's if you're an atheist or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Hindu.
Okay.
Well, how is that fair?
Get in here for just 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so you for Christians, this is interesting. It's always been really jarring and interesting to me that God and Jesus are conflated and used interchangeably. But I just wanted to interject that what has always been super contradictory and I can't even come up with a word. That's how jarring the whole thing is that Muslims, speaking of eschatology, Muslims believe that Jews and Christians go to hell or heaven based on the same logic that they do, right? It's just that they have it's based on good works. I mean, this is a particular, there are different interpretations of this, but one very dominant interpretation is that it's depending on your goodness and lack of goodness, right? They all believe in God. It's the same God.
But there's no heaven for Jews, right? They don't believe in it.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like just Muslims and
okay.
I'm putting this in contradistinction to Christians thinking only one sect of Christianity goes to heaven,
right?
As opposed to, and
so just to clarify, in Islam, Jews and Christians are just as capable of getting to heaven as Muslims are. The difference is Muslims have a more complete set of instructions.
Salvation is accessible to any person who believes in the Abrahamic God,
which Islam at some point even expands to Hindus as well, right?
And Zoroastrians.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
What a loving, inclusive religion that is.
And at this moment, if you are not Muslim, your brain just goes, I'm gonna talk about something else. I'm gonna think about something else. What? No. What? We're moving on. They must be lying. They're this is not.
Well, you guys are, I mean, you guys, the Muslims are crazy and they're terrorists and they want to come, and I mean, that's again the way our society has viewed them. And we're so, I mean, you can even see it with our elected officials and people who are running. Matthew McConaughey, we frame everything in film or TV and present it to ourselves. I mean, have you guys seen these commercials that Trump is coming up with and Ted Cruz?
No.
I mean, they're like these big badass muscle. Trump is, I mean, in these, he's got muscles and a gun and they're all going through, and it's like a film coming next, comes at you with the guy's big voice, and next time you want to see a real fight, this kind of crap. And they're propaganda films, but they are real. They look like real movie trailers. And that's how we present ourselves now. And so
just to wrap up what I was saying, bringing it back to Hamas, and the presentation of this conflict as something between Israel. It's not Israeli IDF, by the way. It's not the Israeli government. It's Israel. It's the land of Israel and all its people against Hamas. Is that Hamas is an Islamic terrorist group, whereas this is a Palestinian issue, of a land issue. It's a dispossession issue. So it's Islamicized. It's connected to terrorism.
It's racialized.
It's racialized, completely racialized. Thank you.
Yeah.
And how do we get?
And it's also gendered, right? Let's not forget that.
And
it's gendered.
And gendered. Thank you. Absolutely. Taking it back to your Trump ads.
Well, I'm saying it's gendered in the way that, like, right, Israel is the defender of women in the Middle East. What will we do? What will the state of women be if Palestinians have any kind of authority over this place? What will the state of LGBTQ people be, right? There's this whole phenomenon of pink washing that takes place.
They really care about the women and the LGBTQ.
Especially the queers. They love us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there won't be a land for them to live on. They'll live on little, 2x4s in the sea. Not even that.
And there's their little gay pride flag flying
on the 2x4.
They just love us so much. Oh my God. Well, I don't think that I think it was, isn't it somewhere in the Bible? I'm not a Bible person, scholar, I guess I should say, that says that this conflict will go on forever.
Who cares?
No, I'm just wondering if there's a
but I don't understand. Like everything, every time I have these conversations with people, it becomes like this religious thing. Well, like the Bible says this land belongs to the Jews. What if I create a religion and I say the land belongs to Martians? I mean, who cares? I don't care what it says. I don't care what anybody's religion says. The only thing that matters is what is happening right now. And there is a population of people who have no human rights. And that's bullshit.
I'm sorry, the Bible also says that women have to sit in the back, shut their fucking mouths up, and keep their head down, and their fathers and their husbands have hegemony over them. Fuck that shit. Like,
and gays should be stoned.
Yeah.
No, where does it say that?
It's Old Testament.
Oh.
Yeah, New Testament was a little bit different.
But women who go outside of their marriage need to be stoned.
Well, everyone must get stoned.
I'm pretty sure.
There's also a half dozen or dozen instances of genocide going on too, right?
Yes.
A lot of things are said in these holy books. And yeah.
Also,
what's
we pick and choose. And the women who are Zionists are picking and choosing.
Yeah.
And I want to have the right to pick and choose too. And so do the Palestinians.
The Scientologists are recruiting. Always.
Creating new religions.
Yes.
We could, and we could give it to the Martians.
It stinks. It already stinks. We got to move on to something new.
Oh my God.
All right, y'all. Oof.
So just for the record, there is such a simple solution to all of this bullshit. That is to create a single secular democratic state and call it Israel. Who cares? And make its flag, the Israeli flag and the Palestinian flag merge together. Make it a brown field so that nobody can tell what anything is. And just give everybody the right to citizenship and build in minority safeguards, religious minority safeguards, ethnic minority safeguards, political safeguards, do single transferable voting. I mean, like, there are so many ways this can be solved in a way that the Jewish population that's currently there can stay there forever. More Jews can move there. And then the Palestinians can have human rights and civil liberties and civil rights, and they can be no longer stateless.
No, but this is about domination.
This is
domination of one people over another,
and racism,
and
racism,
and power. It's about power
and religious
not power
hatred.
sharing. Yeah.
The irony is just staggering. You see this is what's happened to Jews their entire life existence, is they've been cast aside and beaten and torn, torn apart and I don't know, what am I trying to say? I'm like you right now, my brains are not working. But
Mhm.
oppressed. And now they're doing it to another people, and for some reason they just
Well,
can't
yeah.
see that.
That's the trauma of the nation state, I think, right? Like we say this, see the same thing taking place in all sorts of like post-colonial cultures and societies as well. You see a national movement, you see them, with all these amazing anti-colonial principles, inclusion, thorough realism, all of this stuff, and then something happens and it becomes an ethnic national state, and there's some minority somewhere that's oppressed. There's indigenous land that's trodden upon and dispossessed. All of this happens. There's IDP, internally displaced peoples, and like every third world country that I have any sort of familiarity with, there's this issue playing out of indigeneity, of people being pushed out, of a new ethnic, national group being identified with the nation. All of this stuff is taking place. Yeah.
Yeah, the nation state at its core is based within the nation state sort of global, I guess, picture. This the whole thing is based on hierarchy and domination. So you have the UN, even the UN itself, right? You have these, I mean, right, the whole system is based on the logic of domination. And
By definition, nationalism is the belief that your nation is superior to all other nations, which means all other nations are inferior. And just the idea that there are people who embrace this idea that somehow their DNA, their traditions, the fact that their parents were cousins, makes them superior to anybody else on the planet is profoundly insane in 2021, in the aftermath of what we've gone through with all this nationalist cancer that's plagued the planet.
And it's so disappointing, right? You look at the trajectory of the 20th century and you would have imagined, right, we're going to enter this globalized moment, things are going to liberalize, and no, it's the other opposite.
And I mean, it's worth pointing out that the German party that we all villainize, Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterspartei, was shortened to Nazi. The first word is national. The National Socialist German Workers' Party. In other words, if you're a nationalist, you are by definition a Nazi. That is exactly one and the same. And the fact that that so many states around the world have taken on the idea that they're nation states means that they have to wipe out languages, cultures, tradition, that
normalize.
Yes.
Which is what we're doing, right?
One language, one culture, one tradition, one food, one people.
So in Israel, it's basically illegal. It's not technically illegal, but it's basically illegal to speak Ladino or Yiddish, which are these two beautiful, thriving languages that should not be suppressed, but because Hebrew needs to be the nation's language, it's at the expense of everything else. Traditional Jewish foods are replaced by Arab foods because of this nationalistic, ethnic cleansing of your own nation. It's insane. One of the questions that came up was, how does Zionism work with nationalism? And it made me, I just sort of thought of this. I had a conversation, it's actually on the web out there somewhere, with two Austrians. And one of the Austrians was a rabid Zionist. Like if the other one was an internationalist like me. And so he and I were like, oh my God. But the rabid Zionist comes from a place of trauma. He's experienced trauma because his parents, not his parents necessarily, but his parentage, his lineage was Nazi. His family were Nazis in World War II. And I think he's got this profound racism that he's internalized, and he's flipped it on its head. So I asked him the question. I said, so are the Palestinians unworthy of the rights that you believe the Israelis ought to have had? Are Native Americans it's inferior to Jews? And his answer was, absolutely. The Jews occupy a special place because of what we did to them. But then I tried to
centering themselves.
So somehow Austrians are still the center of the universe because of what Austria did to the Jews. Now that makes it so that what the United States did to Native Americans, or what the Israelis have done to Palestinians, or what the Afrikaners have done to the South African population, that somehow that's not that horrible. Because, and so the irony is so much of what is Zionism is just, it's white guilt. It's just an extension of white nationalism.
Yeah, and I think we've taken on that attitude as well, right? Nazi genocide is the genocide.
It is
right?
it's the only genocide.
Yeah,
It's the only, and what we did to the Native Americans, that's not so
and
much.
Don't use the word concentration camp unless it's got to do with Nazis. Well, we had concentration camps in this country. Use the word.
In fact, how about
we still have
irony? The word concentration camp was actually created by the British. They got it from Reconstrucción, which was used by the Spanish in Cuba during the Cuban uprising. So it's originally a Spanish term that got anglicized by the British.
Don't you use that in this country?
Yeah, in the Boer War, from 1899 to I think it was 1902, I think it was 3 years, where the English attacked the Afrikaners in the Orange River Free State and Transvaal, and they conquered those areas, and they were putting the Afrikaners in concentration camps.
So talking about the reasons why there's so much support from the liberals in this country for why so many liberals are Zionists without even knowing it. So yesterday I have an eye doctor appointment, and I had always, this office is close to our house, and for years I've seen this African doctor. She is a person who came here to go to school from I think she's Nigerian. At any rate, lovely. I'm just wonderful, whatever. And when I see that she's not going to be treating me, I'm kind of jarred. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to use names, but oh, where is that doctor? And no, you're going to get the main doctor, the person who started this clinic, whatever, 20, 30 years ago. So I'm like, okay, I've never seen this woman. She walks in, she has an accent, and she's an older lady. She's like 60 something years old. And she's, so I always do this. I said, well, I'm actually from Iran. And where are you from? I detect an accent, and I don't say, where are you from? She says, oh yeah. So what you're detecting is Africana, and I am from South Africa. So we start talking. I was like, well, do you go back? And she said, no. You know, after the problems that we had, we just moved to the US, and it's just not the same country anymore. And it's not anymore. And I'm just sitting there going, but it occurred to me in the backdrop of what's been happening in Palestine. This is how these folks, first of all, I noticed whenever the topic of Eurovision happened yesterday, I think, and Israel takes part in Eurovision, which is the song and dance, whatever. What is it called?
Contest.
Thank you. Competition. So Israel is part of Europe. And imagine what would happen if the unpleasantness happens. There's a switch in power, just like there was in South Africa, and the blacks, right? Or the sand N words take over. Well, this will no longer be a place where we can claim as our own, or like us, or pleasant, or a place we want to go to. We're going to lose something.
Lose your colony.
Yeah.
And it's not just any place, it's where Jerusalem is. Who do we want running Jerusalem? People who are rational and like us, or the sand N-words?
There's just the hate is just overwhelming, and
It's actually pronounced hate.
I'm sorry. The hate is awful. Is that German, or is it?
Because the Israelis hate Hamas so much, they refuse to say Hamas, so they say Hamas.
Oh, I see.
So it's
Jeez.
really.
God, I hope those people are okay.
This is actually falls under linguistic racism, and that is you make the sound of that language come across as anti sort of romanticized as possible. Romantic languages don't have in them, and
Right.
if we look at Hollywood films imitating Nazis, what we hear is
Because in German there is a ch.
yeah,
Yes,
there
there
is.
is.
Makes the ch sound.
But when you listen to people imitating Arabic, which happened a lot after 9/11, what I would hear was and guttural and the ch.
Huh.
So this is part of linguistic racism, is make it as unpleasant as possible. Make it match who they are.
That goes
Sort of like
back to the
using
Spanish.
Say what?
Right. I said sort of like using the hard J in Jew, or the way you pronounce Mexican.
Oh
or
yeah,
because
absolutely.
Mexican to me has never
Spit it
been a
out.
pejorative. It's like, yeah, I don't. Okay, so I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Roy.
No, it's all right. So the Spanish were desperate to be Europeans because they're Arabs. By vocabulary, Spanish is a largely Arabic language. So one of the things that they did was they actually sat down with a dictionary at one point and tried to purge Arabic words out of the language. And they're still like half Arabic, but they got rid of a bunch of them.
Not so much half, but very, very.
A third, fine.
And this kind of process is something the other European languages continue to engage with to this day, right? Like France sits down every year and says, let's get rid of those things. Italy sits down and says, not those. Yeah.
And we're always like, add these. Hey.
Well, so one of the things that the Spanish decided to do was get rid of the ch sound. And because you got to remember, right, that at one point Spain was ruled by Germans. So one of the things that the Germans did was they made it so that the Spanish letters were pronounced the same way German letters are. So once you know how to do the Spanish alphabet, you know how to do the German alphabet. So, but there was one big difference, and that was the way the X was pronounced. In Spanish, the X was pronounced cha. So, for example, the Native American population that Cortez conquered were the Mexica, and they spelled it with an X to make the cha sound. Well, when the Spanish decided to get rid of cha because it made them sound too Arab, they switched the X to a ha, which is why there are so many different ways you can make ha in Spanish. And so now everybody says Mexico. Really, it should be Mexico. Well, really, it should be Mexica. But that's part of that. It is this profound self-hating, anti-Arab, how do we not sound Arab purging thing? And then, of course, Klingons have cha in their language.
Yeah,
right.
Not
Well,
accidentally.
French does too a little
That's
bit.
not
And
subtle.
so I would, and because of that, when you say that, I would guess that French and, well, any of the Latin-based languages would also be very Arabic because they're also
A little bit.
similar.
Yeah, I mean, French has a little bit, but just the fact the definite article comes from Arabic, right? Al.
Right.
It's filtered into the Latin-based languages. It's also worth pointing out Hebrew has the ch sound. And so I think it also feeds into our general anti-Semitism, because at the end of the day, right, there is this profound, it's worth remembering that 2/3 of Americans in the 1930s said they did not want Jews coming from Europe because they were probably Nazi terrorists.
Yeah.
And the United States turned around ships filled with Jews and sent them back to Europe to die in the Holocaust. And also it's worth pointing out that the United States never once dropped a single bomb on any death camp, railroad track leading to the death camps, on any infrastructure surrounding the Holocaust. That we intentionally allowed the Holocaust to happen. And one of the things that's worth pointing out too is there's a lie that we didn't know what was happening. We didn't crack it. The Polish broke ground, the English finished cracking Enigma. And as a result, they knew exactly everything the Nazis were doing. And I have seen aerial photographs that were marked up by US intelligence that shows Auschwitz, and it shows very clearly that they knew exactly what Auschwitz was for. And the fact of the matter is that we did know exactly what was happening. We did nothing to intervene. And so this all goes back
we couldn't have,
anti-Semitism.
right? Yeah.
What?
I said we couldn't have, our population would not have tolerated that intervention, right? We had fascists marching by the tens of thousands in the United States, ready to support this cause.
And then we had fascists in places of power, like Henry Ford. Henry Ford was a Nazi.
Man. This has been an uplifting fucking episode, I gotta tell you. I am ready for the week.
Oh, by the way, Prescott Bush, George Bush is Jr.'s granddad, Senior's dad, had his assets seized during World War II because he refused to stop selling and buying from the Nazis. In fact, Ford only stopped delivery of trucks to the Nazis in December of 1944. So you're right, there was enormous complicity on the part of Americans in the project.
And then didn't his son do the same thing later with Iran-Contra?
I don't know how deeply involved Senior was with Iran-Contra.
I've never heard anything.
CIA.
Yeah.
I just think it's incredible that his son is shot down fighting in the Pacific while his dad is fighting with his enemies, his son's enemies. Like that's a nice family. Let's give them power. Let's make a couple of them presidents.
Hey, it's about business.
It's about business.
It's not about family. Especially when the Trump kids go to prison and Donald's like, oh, I don't know anything about it.
Do you think that's gonna happen?
No.
It's the aristocracy. They don't go to prison.
No, I do think that if he was, and it may be that he's pressed, he would throw as many of them as it took under the bus, but I don't think they would go to jail.
In a second. Oh yeah.
We are going to press him, right? Like the Democratic Party has said that they don't want any of this ugliness. We don't want to press him. We don't want to see anyone going to jail. We want.
So let's let the Southern District do its thing. And maybe they'll pull them. I don't know.
The New York Attorney General has merged his case, so now it's one case.
Let's hope. I mean, at the very least, I just want some humiliation. Really, is all I want. I just want some public fucking humiliation.
Susie, I empower you to go and throw a pie.
Thank you.
That's about the only way you're going to get it, I think.
No. Yeah.
And not directly at them. Just throw it somewhere, right?
Just throw a pie.
How are you going to get close enough anyway?
All right, y'all. Okay. Oh my goodness. We either need a positive note to end on, or we need one of your meditation exercises that the classes have been up.
What is a positive note?
Can we think of an instance of international solidarity or something?
I got a positive note for you.
Tell me.
No more kids are gonna die, at least for a while. From bombing.
Because
in this area.
They really shoot through the Gaza fence at people who get too close to the fence.
Bombing.
So there's a constant volume of Palestinians who are just murdered.
Mm-hmm. And this is children just in this particular area of the world. Children elsewhere will continue to die by bombs.
Right, yeah.
5 kids in these 11 days, 65 children on the Gaza side. And it was also reported that I think 6 or 7 kids on the Israeli side died. So.
And just to throw this in there, I know it's not got anything to do with this, but they still haven't heard anything on that group of young girls who was kidnapped from school in the Congo a couple of months ago. So that's another thing that we need to follow, I think.
Yep. Anyway, on a positive note, no more kids are gonna get bombed in this region. Until
next time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the next time Netanyahu wants to pull some rabbit out of his hat.
Well, it doesn't matter what prime minister.
Whatever.
The system is the same. The ways to, the playbook is the same. They're reading the same playbook, whether in Israel or here as well, right? When we need to form a government, we'll find an enemy.
Yeah, like when Clinton needed to distract everybody from the Monica Lewinsky scandal and he bombed Sudan and Afghanistan.
You guys, did you see what she tweeted? There was a question. It said, what's the most high risk, low reward thing you've ever done? And she retweeted it with these eyes that were like,
what do you think?
What did she say?
She made the eyes. She retweeted.
That's all she had to say.
I think we all know. low reward.
Yeah.
Monica Lewinsky. Love her. I do.
What happened to her? Like, what did she do?
She's a fucking badass now, is what she is.
What?
Yeah.
She took her platform and she made the best of it. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh my
That's
god,
awesome.
I gotta
I didn't know
follow
this.
her. I had no
she's
idea.
kick fucking ass. She's
What
like,
did she do? Like in one sentence, because we got to wrap up. What is she doing right now?
Well, she's going around. She grabbed onto Me Too. She started way before. She did a stand-up for HBO many years ago, and basically told the whole story. And from there, she started becoming a woman. I mean, she lost her baby. I mean, she was a child when this happened.
Yeah.
And she has come out and spoken truth to power about men and how they in positions of power and how they treat women. She's written a couple of books, I think. She's a fucking badass.
That's
She
cool.
got her master's in psychology. She's
Yeah,
given
she
all these talks.
There's
She's
our nice thought that we're ending the show.
That is the nice thought.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Monica, thank you again.
All the
yeah.
drama first. And now
We're all traumatized. Let's just heal from it instead of inflicting the same trauma patterns on others.
Exactly.
Yes,
What a
yes.
great idea.
I can't make any promises.
Neither can
Are we
Netanyahu.
healed?
I'm sorry, Susie.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, me and
Okay.
Benny, I'm gonna start calling Benjamin Netanyahu that. Benny. You think he'd like that?
Yeah.
Benny.
You know Bibi
Bibi.
in Farsi? Bibi in Farsi means it's like a motherly figure, Bibi.
Oh,
For us,
really?
it's, yeah.
Yeah, people call their grandmothers and nannies and
Oh, that's
people
so
who
funny.
give
Like
them milk,
Nana.
Bibi. And when I heard that referred, like
Yeah. So
I was
strange.
like, oh God, why? No.
For me, it's the projectile that was shot at me and hit me here and
BB.
lodged
BB gun.
wedged a quarter of an inch from my eyeball.
Oh my God, you're talking about chains and stuff again.
I was 11. It's okay. It's in my past.
I also have met.
Talking about we're getting old and what happens is when we meet each other each week is like, oh, this is wrong and that is wrong.
All right.
Mm.
Oh,
I
it's
got
so
a cane.
pretty.
I got a cane. I have to use a cane to walk now. Isn't it gorgeous?
It's so pretty.
It's from Italia.
They make the best stuff.
They do. I know. And it's
it
really
makes
expensive.
canes make one distinguished. I've always put men and canes together, but I would love to see you walk in it.
Oh,
Maybe next show you can show us walking with it.
I'm pimping with my limp. I'll tell you. Good looking.
All right, catch Susie pimping on the streets of Georgetown. Until next time, this has been RPM, the Red Peace Machine. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We've done closing thoughts. I'm not giving you another opportunity.
Oh, forget it.
No more.
It's gonna keep going.
No more. All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Oh my God, Ramesh, you never said how you're doing.
Next time, I'll still be here.
You'll still be in Mexico. Okay. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Have we stopped